and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farrukh Pitafi. Today we are going to talk about regional peace. Heart of Asia Conference has taken place in Dushanbe, and it is also known as the Istanbul process. So we are going to talk about it because there are three very important things. As you know, Heart of Asia Conference is primarily comprises 16 members. And then there are 12 more, 16 more who actually support from outside, and 12 regional and international organizations that actually look at Afghanistan peace process. So the major questions that I'm going to ask are three. The first one is, what does it mean for Afghanistan? Was there any major breakthrough or anything which was important? Two, was there anything important regarding regional stability and peace? I say this because there are many undercurrents which are quite visible right now, so we are going to talk about that as well. And the third is India-Pakistan relationship, because this time we didn't see that kind of exchange of harsh words either coming from India or Pakistan. Then you know the Prime Minister of Pakistan has responded to Narendra Modi's letter as well, while Narendra Modi actually highlighted terrorism as the main issue. The Prime Minister has emphasized that Kashmir is the most important or pivotal subject. And then, of course, Pakistan has decided to import sugar and cotton from India as well. We are going to talk about all these matters and more in order to help us understand these issues. We are joined by Yasir Janjua Saab, who is a security expert, quite regular on this channel. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program.
Thank you, sir.
Lieutenant General retired Naeem Khalid Lodi, former Defense Minister and NSA, joins us on Skype. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program.
Pleasure.
And Dr. Jameel Ahmed Khan Saab, a former ambassador, career diplomat, also joins us on Skype. Dr. Saab, thank you very much for being part of the program. Dr. Saab, let me start with you. Let me ask you, what do you think of Heart of Asia Conference in itself? Do you think that it is going to offer any kind of solutions to Afghanistan's future?
That basically is formulated under the United Nations Charter, a strength, that is international law, and it's Chapter 8. Basically, so that therefore it has its strength and umbrella of the United Nations. So all of this is known as the regional organization, like other regional organizations such as SCO, ECO, or for example, the SADC, EU, and so on and so forth. So that is one. Now the fact of the matter is, Heart of Asia is a part of those multifaceted efforts which is being made. And in those multifaceted efforts, there are common and conflicting interests of the regional as well as international countries. And what do I mean by that? For example, SCO was sufficient to harness the problem of Afghanistan or associated countries. But why this Heart of Asia came up, the analysts, and I am one of them, they feel that basically it was to keep an eye on the influence of China by the United States. So that is what the analysts say, and it's just up to the other analysts to.
Dr. Sir, you are looking at the, sorry to cut you, but you are looking at the macro level, right? But regarding individual spheres of influence, we know that SCO actually primarily is sphere of influence of Russia and China. And here we see this sphere of influence of Turkey, because Turkey seems to be the center of this all. I'm going to come back to you, sir, with your permission. Let me bring in General Saab as well. General Saab, your opening comment on this Heart of Asia Conference and its what it entails for Afghanistan.
Thank you very much. We know that basically existence because of it is a good thing and it is the most welcome. But one thing I think we all know, that such large representation of countries, such platforms, they never arrive on any solutions. I mean, this is the history. They can make pledges, they can give statements, they can show their inclinations as it all happened. But it doesn't mean that there is no advantage of such conferences. The main advantage, which I think, and which Pakistan, I think, took advantage of that, those are the side meetings. You must have heard that there was a side meeting from the Foreign Minister of Iran and our Foreign Minister and maybe many others also. So that is the main benefit. And if these countries in this conference, of course, they have not pledged any economic assistance for Afghanistan, although they have made mention of what each country has been doing.
Right.
But if such platforms can make future pledges and they stand by that as far as the economic support is concerned, political support is concerned, that would be enough. As far as resolution of the problem is concerned, that is clearly and squarely between United States of America, Afghan Taliban, and Afghan government, and others can just facilitate. So if we are expecting any outcome,
money-wise also, this seems to be a bad season for peace building. Another conference regarding Syria also, underperformed in commitments, financial commitments to various countries. But in Afghanistan, we haven't seen that kind of pledges. Janjua Saab, your initial take on the importance of this process and what it means for Afghanistan.
Thank you, Mr. Pitafi. I have a different view, and I want to be corrected if I'm wrong. To my understanding, and I was trying to search, I think the Taliban were missing from this conference, were they? If they were missing from this Heart of Asia conference, do you think there is any meaningful outcome expected from a conference whereby the world leaders and the nations are saying Taliban have stopped, have violated the ceasefire agreement that was reached last year in February with the Americans? So if the Taliban are not on table, I think it's lip service. Secondly, this is my personal view and based on my own analysis, there was a conference or there was a meeting a few weeks ago as well in Moscow, and which was represented by Taliban. Now, I think India is trying to flex its muscles and use its diplomacy, because India was probably not invited in the Moscow dialogue.
Yeah, it was mentioned,
So the question here is, and this is, I mean, I speak for being a Pakistani and a very patriotic Pakistani. India would never be interested in peace in Afghanistan. The lip service can continue. I was today looking at a YouTube video by the Afghan ambassador to New Delhi soon after this conference. They were talking all sorts of nice things, but the fact remains, it's not in India's interest for peace to prevail in Afghanistan. Because as soon as on our western borders we have peace, India thinks so, we will shift our focus from west to east. So India would never want this to happen. India would never want there to be lasting peace. Although we've heard the speeches from Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and others saying some very positive things. What is the key message that has come out, whether this is going to be implemented or not? Demilitarization, withdrawal of troops, and a confirmation that there is no military solution to the Afghan conflict, and that is very important. However, without Taliban being on the table, I think no meaningful solution can be implemented.
Yeah, but the purpose naturally was, and this process has been going on for quite some time, 14 countries which are member countries, 16 others which are associated, and then 12 organizations which essentially focus on the future of Afghanistan as a state. Afghanistan as a government is represented. So regardless of who is from within Afghanistan represented or not, that is another thing. Let me go back to Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan Saab. Dr. Saab, earlier you were talking about the international influence in the region. You can talk about that as well. But here's a very crucial question, because you have been actually studying Afghanistan for quite some time. Let me ask you, what is the biggest problem of Afghanistan? Is it security or is it money? Because at this moment, we keep on seeing a lot of people who are interested in talking about security of Afghanistan. We haven't seen that kind of pledges coming forward from various countries for financial benefit of Afghanistan. Your take, sir.
Our national security directly depend on the economic security. So Afghanistan is quite vulnerable so far as their economic security is concerned. And as you very correctly in your intro have pointed out that this is not the right atmosphere and right environment and right time because of the COVID that the pledges could be made. All the international multilateral forums at this point in time, whenever they are getting together, it's becoming very difficult for them to really harness the support in terms of money, in terms of funding. So therefore, your point and your direct answer to your question that yes, there is a problem. Afghanistan needs the funding to sustain and to maintain its security. Now, having said so, this reference I may again give it as our other panelist has just pointed it out. The 29th February last year, 2022, the agreement between US and the Afghanistan, and it has already been discussed that Afghan Taliban have not been invited. But here, the heart of Asia, Afghanistan, basically it's also the security can only be facilitated and harnessed if the interest, the economic connectivity and interest would foster the peace, and TAPI included in that. So India interest otherwise is very right. They would not like us to disengage from our from this Afghanistan side and western border, but India also has an interest, and that's why they are striving very hard to get the connectivity through Afghanistan. And that's why it's the heart of Asia that without Afghanistan connectivity, it will be very hard for any actor, global or the 14 members of the heart of Asia, or SCO or ECO, that they could have that. So if these multi-faceted platforms are facilitated, or to some extent they are able to implement their charter, in that case, the economic prosperity ought to be there because of the interest connected, including Pakistan and India. I've just referred TAPI. In that case, the security, sustainable security, can only be possible for Afghanistan. Right now, the United States' main interest is to harness the support of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other countries of the members of this country, and that's why the ambassadorial meeting on the in the month of February 2022 had taken place in Istanbul, and where the agenda was also prepared. And in that, they want to assert the influence for the intra-Afghan dialogue and influence the Afghanistan agree, which seems very uphill task, which seems very difficult, but this is how it is going on. Yes.
You actually bring up very interesting points there. It is actually a brilliant point. This idea of trickle-down economy, that if connectivity starts and if TAPI and projects like IP, used to be IPI at one time, they actually start delivering, perhaps Afghanistan will have an economic backbone to actually lean on. Let me go to Jadal Saab. Jadal Saab, do you think that of late, is it not true that we have stopped hearing the words like TAPI and IP, and there seems to be a shift in focus on security matters? You brought up the issue of money, and it seems that Afghan security forces are not able to even pay their soldiers in time. So that might also actually create a stability issue. Your points.
Thank you very much. First of all, I must apologize for my ignorance. I didn't know that Afghan Taliban were not represented there. Now that I've come to know about it, I would have suggested the Pakistan delegation not to go there. Because how can you talk about Afghanistan if the main stakeholder is absent? And let me also add that it is not a matter of security and economy. It is a matter of sovereignty and economy. And whereas you can balance out security and economy, you can never balance out sovereignty and economy. Afghanistan has a problem of sovereignty for the time being and not security. Security will come later on once its sovereignty is achieved. And they are in a habit of living under very low subsistence levels. So probably they are not like us, that, you know, if something, a little thing goes wrong and we come on our knees begging that please give us this and give us that. No, they are not like us. So I think the first thing is sovereignty. And you mentioned about the legitimacy of Afghan government. Let me remind you, and all those who think that this present Afghan government is a legitimate government, to whom did US talk once it came to the sovereignty of Pakistan, of Afghanistan, and leaving Afghanistan. Under whose tutelage, I would say, these election was carried out, and what was the how many people participated? They said 10-11%. Actually, it was 5 to 6%. How much time it did take for the Election Commission of Afghanistan to announce the results? I think at least 6 months or even more. Two gentlemen came up that I am the president. No, this is very important.
General Sir, I don't want to interrupt, sir, but let me remind you that last time we actually discussed this matter and you have made this point. At this moment, the focus is a little bit broader because we are not merely going to talk about Afghanistan. We have to talk about the regional peace as well and other aspects. Regarding legitimacy, sir, the UN actually acknowledges the current government.
It doesn't matter.
If we are talking about sovereignty, can we actually divide Afghanistan into various groups and say that all of them have to be represented when there is a state that is being represented? Let me, with your permission, let me go back to Janjua Saab. I want to actually move past Afghanistan, but if you want to actually finish the previous thought, if you want to add to what was said, please go ahead.
I would absolutely agree with General Saab. When you talk about regional peace, how can you take out Taliban and put them outside the box and achieve that regional peace inside Afghanistan without them being on board? You're talking about UN recognizing the Afghan government?
Yeah.
See how much of an area do they command inside Afghanistan?
No, I agree.
They're not outside Kabul.
And I have pointed out that I have no love lost for Afghan government. The only humble point is, if you are going to hold talks with America, are you going to say that the Republicans who have substantial representation in their Senate and their House should also be on the table? That is not going to happen, right?
Let's compare apples to apples. America.
No, I'm talking about sovereignty and that being attached to a state, not to a group.
Right, but now that is why in the Doha dialogue as well, the Americans realized after many years fighting with Taliban, they realized that Afghans have to be brought onto the table. And so despite the fact that sovereignty lies with the elected Afghan government, yet they were discussing with the Taliban.
Right. So
and at one point they did not invite the Afghan government and only talking to Taliban.
And that was between two parties, right? Here you have something like 40 parties and we can talk about that endlessly, right? What I'm saying, every forum has its own importance. Afghanistan doesn't seem to get substantial support from Heart of Asia. Is it? Can you actually? Is it?
I mean, my take on this is why so many forums for solving a problem. Now this forum. You can take this problem to SCO.
Yeah.
Has United? There is the biggest forum is United Nations.
Not a member of SCO.
What I'm saying is, the biggest forum is United Nations. Yeah. What has it done? So you can continue making these forums.
But with due respect, humbly submitting, Central Asia and Afghanistan might be sphere of influence of SCO countries, but historically the old Turkestan was also an extended part of the sphere of influence of Turkey. Okay. So every country wants to be relevant here.
I have to give you one comment. Yeah. And that came from Ambassador Munter a few days ago on the, I don't know if you were there, in the Islamabad.
I was invited, couldn't make it.
I was there. I heard him from Zoom. You know what he said? He said categorically that these are my personal views, but he's been the ambassador of the US in Islamabad. He's been working for think tanks and for the US government. So even if he says things in private, you understand that this is, he says, America is actually losing interest in this region.
Yeah.
We are now talking about Indo-Pacific and Quad group. So he says American interest is now west of Wagah border. These were his words.
Yeah, but so far I thought that we were talking about Afghanistan and Heart of Asia. Let me go back to Ambassador Saab, because Ambassador Saab, we have actually focused a lot in this program on Afghanistan. Let me actually, I raised 3 questions at the start. Let me mix up the next 2. Regional peace and India-Pakistan peace process or possibility of it. We saw that there was no exchange of harsh words. Last time, if you remember, during a previous government's time, there was a lot of hostility, and Pakistan felt that it is being isolated or marginalized. Do you see any possibility of peace building in the region, sir?
Well, the indicators have started, but it has always been very bumpy. We have seen in past also the way the paths were paved. This time, I see that after the Biden administration, the sphere of this region, regional dynamics is slightly modified and readjusted. And from that angle, you can see that the UAE is taking interest and pursuing India. Saudi Arabia is taking interest now after the Biden administration. And there are other stakeholders that are taking interest to bring peace and why they are doing so. And I will refer it to the Prime Minister's speech in General Assembly last year and even this year through the virtual platform, that the two countries are the nuclear country. That's number one aspect. And for faith, the entire world is so concerned. So they want to taper down. That's number one. Number two is that they don't want to lose the link and the bilateral strength of the bilateral strength. So it has been very bumpy with the United States and Pakistan. They want to have their footprints in Pakistan. Not only that, they want to have some kind of a presence in Pakistan also. And basically, because as I said, the heart of Asia, there are analysts, and including myself, we feel that this was to counter the influence of China. So here also, the Americans would not like to totally wind up from Pakistan and totally wind up from Afghanistan. Although they have the crunch of their own economy, Biden administration has a different approach as compared to the Trump administration. So from that angle, the language and the statements have changed. But coming back to your question, yes, the heat has been really literally tampered down because Modi message and after that Prime Minister Imran Khan message of the Pakistan Day parade, that shows. And prior to that, the way the line of control, the restoration of the ceasefire line of control, all these things, if we just keep in our view and try and interpret the things, then there are bilateral, multilateral, and track 2 going on, taper down the heat.
Do you see track 2 also taking place, sir? Because of late I haven't seen any track 2. I've seen back channel, at least it is mentioned somewhere. But where is track 2 between India and Pakistan right now, Ambassador sir?
No, track 2 is, you're right, track 2 is for now it's suspended. But yes, back channel diplomacy, and as I mentioned, that the stakeholders, multilateral stakeholders, they are involved in it. And I already mentioned about Saudi Arabia and UAE and recent statements from them also. So those factors, have to be kept in mind while we see that little hope about the tapping down the heat in between the relation between Afghanistan, between Pakistan and India. And India now also realizes that they cannot really again bring traction in their economy by having conflict all the time. And we should bear in our mind the kind of pressure they had on their Ladakh border, and they would not like that. They should open two-prong pressure from this side also. And their generals have already made statements in this context. Yes.
Right. That's a very good take on the overall situation. General sir, we have been here, and last time you were in this program, we discussed India-Pakistan, and we said that it is a sense of deja vu. Every time we keep on trying to build peace, and there comes a time when Pakistan, India reach the thorny issues moment, and at that time everything breaks down. Do you see anything changing right now? I understand that the entire world now wants India and Pakistan to work together. And Pakistan has repeatedly emphasized that it wants to build peace. Is there a chance that the Indian government is not going to actually use it to dilly-dally or to shift attention from its domestic issues and do it only for temporary, for immediate effect and not later on?
You see, peace is such a big prize for this area. And the only way is, of course, negotiations, talking. So I think any sane mind would welcome any gesture however small it is, however low is the probability of it succeeding, it must be given a try. And I think that way we must appreciate that it has happened. And you are right that there's a lot of international pressure both on both the countries to mend their differences. But I would like to say one thing, that peace and atrocities cannot coexist. Whereas it is good. One thing I think, excuse me, a good thing that happened is that people were making various conclusions about the speeches of Prime Minister and the Chief of Army Staff. So the letter now, which went yesterday from Prime Minister's side, I think those things should have been laid to rest, because he did mention Kashmir. He said that conducive environment can only occur if we resolve our issues, especially he said Kashmir. So it means Kashmir has not been compromised. It has not been given up.
General sir, with due respect, since you brought up the army chiefs and the Prime Minister's speeches, I distinctly remember that Kashmir was mentioned in both. And here's the point: Indian media, being very influential in this region, keeps on giving everything twists and turns, right? Spin of it, sorts. And somehow in Pakistan also, we somehow, our sensitivities are such that perhaps we end up inhaling that propaganda. Otherwise, government of Pakistan, the state of Pakistan repeatedly has been talking about Kashmir.
True. True. In fact, even that sentence by the Chief of Army Staff, that let us bury the past and move ahead. I said that we can bury the bitterness, we can bury this standoff which is always there, and this mistrust. But of course, we cannot bury the history. We cannot bury the sacrifices given by Kashmiris and all that. But there is one more development today, which is rather alarming for me, and that is we have allowed some imports from India without Indians moved anything on occupied Kashmir. The atrocities are there. The demographic changes, they are still, doing that. 370 has not been reinstated. Whatever Modi said in Bangladesh is very well known to us. So to me, it seems, and it was today that I've changed my mind, there are certain compromises from our side.
Sir, I don't mind a touch of skepticism, but when it comes to these matters, economy has its own track. Perhaps I agree that if we were to import something, I would have imported vaccines first and then would have gone for anything else. But regardless, it is the government's policy, and whatever government decides. Yasir Janjua Saab, are you hopeful at all that there is going to be peace building between India and Pakistan? Excuse me.
If we say there's going to be complete peace, that will not come until the Kashmir problem is solved.
Absolutely.
So there's no denying the fact that until Kashmir is solved, Pakistan and India will keep going back and forth, back and forth. There will be a lull period, then they'll start fighting, there will be skirmishes, and then they'll go back. What we see now in the last few weeks, excuse me, and that started with the telephonic conversation between the two DGMOs. And the ceasefire on the line of control. So that started, if you say, the back channel or the track to diplomacy, so a little bit of normalization, and then you see Prime Minister Modi asking about Prime Minister Imran Khan's health and all those things. These are things that, and I think, and to some reason I believe from what I have researched, there's a great deal of influence of Biden administration asking India to take a back seat, and also India realizing what we have not talked about today, and this has repercussions and this has implications. Only a few days ago, China and Iran have signed a deal for $400 billion. So that has a lot of implications. India is now realizing that I cannot exist in this region without compromising or coming to terms with China. And April has come. April, I'm not a Joshi, but you might see a reversal of 370AA and some things like that happening.
How that will happen, I don't know. Because
I'm an optimist.
Narendra Modi's car doesn't have a reverse gear. I haven't seen one being applied of late. But regardless of that, I wanted to ask you about demographic shifts, right? You brought up the agreement between China and Iran. At that time also, it seemed that we have inhaled the Indian propaganda, where actually Adani office bearer was talking about India changing its view on regional connectivity based on one phone call, and somebody actually attributed in Pakistan or India's media to the Chinese side, and somehow it became something else. But here's the thing. I understand that Indian government has tried to bring in many changes, many new instruments like scuttling of Article 370, 35A, then there's this domicile law, then there are umpteen other things that have happened. But what exactly is the situation on ground? Have these attempts been successful? If they are not successful, then the entire structure can be taken back eventually. But it doesn't have to be the starting point. Do you think at this moment, when it comes to the efforts on ground of the Indian government to actually change demography of Kashmir, have they been successful?
Well, they're trying, and they're doing their utmost to change the demography in Kashmir, and that is why they've been waiting that when the right time is there, then they can go and say, well, we can now do the plebiscite. Having said that, we preempted that, I say, and probably we could not afford a direct conflict with India because of our situation or economic situation. I think we used China as a proxy, and I don't mind saying that. China came to our rescue when the Ladakh happened.
Don't use word proxy, our life. Yeah.
You might say that. Well, the thing is, I was talking to somebody, some very informed person today, and well, they said, well, and that's it's not my invention, the conversation that I'm talking about. So I don't want to take credit.
It won't be your invention.
So the question is, China actually put a check on India by venturing into Ladakh and holding them there. What we now say that China has engaged India on another front, which India used to do by engaging us on the Western front. Now, what you talk about the changing demographics and the economic situation, Pakistan's economy is now improving and improving and improving. So, and with the CPEC going forward, India realizes India is the only country that is left over except for India and Bhutan. Everybody else is part of the BRI. So, India stands to lose as long as it stays out of it. And there is a good chance, I'm not a Joshi, but there is a good chance, sooner or later, the Americans will also join this BRI.
Right, okay. So you keep on saying that you are not a Joshi or a seer, but you keep on predicting. There's the third prediction.
That's my job.
You made.
That's my job.
That is your job? Are you a seer? Okay, let me bring in, go back to Ambassador Saab. Dr. Saab, let me ask you one thing. It has been exactly 604 days, 11 hours and 40 minutes since India actually did away with or tried to dismantle Article 370, recolonized Kashmir and Ladakh, and since situation has been really bad. But there have been two debates in this country when it comes to approach to peace. One is to actually follow Chanakya's model of rice ball stratagem. Start from the outside, keep on building peace, or at least introduce CBMs, gradually go to the heart of the matter and then try to resolve it. It didn't work. The other approach was that first engage in the issues which are important to each country. India and Pakistan have talked about terrorism and separately, of course, on Kashmir repeatedly as well. But both approaches don't seem to work. General Saab, when he was talking about it, had objections to the first approach of actually first working on the atmospherics. What do you think is the better approach?
I think it's always a multi-pronged approach, and without multi-pronged approach and multilateral approach in this issue, I think we have already seen more than a dozen Security Council resolutions, and we have also been hampering upon the Security Council resolution. We have also been giving examples of the General Assembly Resolution 2649. We have been also trying to harness the support of the United Nations and the member states, but it hasn't worked so far. So that means these 2 points, what you have just mentioned, the Kashmir, as well as the kind of a conflict which we have with India, basically because of the conflict, it's not really being ironed out so far in this entire region. So in all conflicts of the world, there are first an atmosphere is made. So although those efforts in atmosphere which were made previously could not work, and this time we can't really leave it, because then the other solution remains. The other solution we are left with is the direct confrontation, which at this point in time, I think both countries, India and Pakistan, both are neutral countries, and Prime Minister has already said it. We can afford that. So that being said, let me connect your point here about what is happening in Kashmir. Now, with Modi over there, is there any indication, any sign that they would revert back from their decision of abrogation of 370 and 35? The indicators are ground up that they have now been able to bring about 1.5 million or more people through the Domicile Act amendment, and there are Citizens Register Act, there are other things they are taking. That things they are trying to very quickly attain the level where they could go for the plebiscite. So that the effort they are making. But at the same time, Pakistan cannot be left over and do not engage. Either they engage or they confront. So my point is, until the last efforts and the last point is exhausted, there is no point of going for the confrontation directly. And in order to reach to that level, you have to create a platform and ground and bring the world community at that level, with that mindset. You want to
Ambassador Saab, I'm told that we are actually running out of time. I have to go back to General Saab as well. General Saab, if you want to come in, please do. It is not merely about atmospherics. It is also about the pace of CBMs. It seems that with this government in India, the starting point is very far behind. So I don't know how many years we are going to see the CBMs actually taking place, confidence building taking place before we can reach the center of the problem. This dispute between the two countries. Please go ahead.
I should not be taken wrong, because I'm not against making positive environment and start talking and all that. What I was saying is that it has to be corresponding. For example, it was very good that ceasefire took place on both the sides, so it was a corresponding act. Then we said that we want to talk. They have not yet said so. And then we have gone another step that we will allow imports. They have not done anything as far as atrocities in Kashmir is concerned, as far as demographic changes are concerned. So they are going according to the plan and assimilating Kashmir exactly according to their own timelines. And we are thinking whether we should be confronting them or we should be talking to them. The problem is that if one side is slapping you, so how can you say that I don't want any confrontation? It is not, I mean, that choice has not been given to you. Whatever they are doing to us from Afghanistan, whatever they did to us in the shape of coercion and all that, it clearly shows that what are they doing. So if the answer is talking, if they talk, then we should talk. But if they slap, then what should we do? I mean, I'm not with those people who think that just because of economy, we should give up everything and stop this confrontation and we should keep doing one-sided things. I'm not for it.
Right. I don't think anybody in Pakistan is for giving up Kashmir for the sake of economic benefits. But Yasir Janjua Sahab, your conclusion as well. You want to add it?
I will, a little bit of disagreement with due respect to General Saab.
Okay.
If we can't directly fight with India and we still have to pursue our agenda, you call him an ally, I call him something else, but China is our best hope in this current situation. China is the only power which can challenge America, and China is the only power which can subdue India. And we have some very good relations with China, and that is what we are doing. And I think to put more pressure on India, if we can't do it ourselves directly because of whatever reasons, whether they are economic reasons, I think China is doing a pretty good job in helping us achieving our aim. And maybe, yes, you are right that as of now it looks India is going as per plan, but I think, this is my opinion, that in coming months there would be some changes because China is building up pressure on India.
Prediction. I'm going to keep the record of this program and then we are going to actually
I'm an analyst,
compare.
That's my job.
Yeah, but analyze, you are predicting. And that's a good thing.
You have to remain optimistic.
In coming days, we are going to actually compare the notes, right? I'm told that we have to conclude the program at this moment. Regarding what you said, and General Saab said, there is a concern when you actually leave these things to the foreign, governments. For example, match whatever India is doing, or for that matter, leave it on China. Then you have two problems. One, you end up locking yourself out of possibilities. Two, these countries are independent of you and they have their own initiative. You cannot lose initiative and actually give it to somebody else. But I'm told that we have to conclude the program. Yasir Jajwa sir, thank you very much sir, for being part of the program. Dr. Jameel Ahmed Khan sir, thank you very much. It was great having you in the show. Same goes for you, General Saab. Thank you very much for your precious time and your contribution. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. There were two aspects. One, Afghanistan. The other, of course, the elephant in the room in this region, that is India. How to actually build peace. When it comes to Afghanistan, it seems that the major issue is money. And somehow, while the idea of trickle-down economy is there, but the amounts that Afghan government has been needing in the past, $50 billion, $100 billion to take care of its business, that doesn't seem to be coming from anywhere. And that might actually be a cause for concern for many participants of Heart of Asia Conference and elsewhere as well. Regarding India, Pakistan, this is not our first rodeo. We have been there, we have tried every kind of approach, but let us hope that we don't lock ourselves out of any possibility. Maybe one ally or the other, one policy approach or the other. And the second thing, of course, is to have faith in the state of Pakistan, that it knows and the leaders of it know what they are doing. Let us hope that actually bears fruit. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.